until actually what we're doing is try to plan a seminar, a webinar for sometime in the spring. We're working with them to do that, to take a deeper dive into this. So more information will be coming to really take a deep dive. I'm going to talk about this at more at a high level, but then if we want to really get into some specific questions with OPM, we're going to do a webinar, and we're working on that. And once we have that figured out, we'll send you guys out the details to that. So it was out on March 10th. Here's just pictures of kind of what it looks like, the classification series. As again, it is 0308. It came along with accompanying memorandum explaining what it is. I actually have a copy of it right here, if I want to see it afterwards. Laying out really what's in the series, explaining how it's organized, and when you would use it, what series you'd select, how you'd apply it, and all those types of things. So very well done, very well organized, and here's a sample of what it looks like. As I mentioned, we were very pleased to see this got done. We posted all on our Records Express blog site, laying out what they did. We have a link to it, so if you have not seen it and you want to get it, it is there. Just click on the link. We also have links to the directive there, which, I should point out, this was an action item in the Management Government Records Directive for OPM to create this classification series. So we are very pleased with it. Overall, personally, from my perspective, I think it is a really good document. I think it gives us what we're looking for, which was to obviously elevate the records management profession, bringing it more from administrative to the profession that it is, kind of illustrating the skills needed, business analysts, policy, IT, those types of skills you would expect to see for the work that we do day in and day out in the records management field. So I think it's a good step in the right direction, and I was happy to see that was done, and it's on our blog page if you want to get access to it, in addition to OPM. So just a little bit of background on how the fly sheet was created. Some of you might have been invited to. OPM conducted multiple rounds of reviews, held focus groups. Paul Wester, our Chief Records Officer, he participated in some of those. I know lots of agencies were invited to participate. They posted a draft on December 31st. Actually, it was 2013, not 2014. And they received numerous comments from us, the federal government, the federal records management community. We provided back lots of comments on the first draft. The first draft was good, but still needed, I thought, some work. So lots of comments came from us, from the Federal Records Management, Federal Records Council provided a bunch of comments, and they took a lot of those comments into the final draft. They didn't take everything, but they took quite a bit, and I think it worked out, and it became a very good document. So very pleased to see that. So this is sort of the process they did with the focus groups, gathering a lot of that feedback, and then ultimately putting it out. So that was how they created the fly sheet. What does it do? It provides direction to our Chief Human Capital Officers as they are making these decisions on putting out these job announcements. Most importantly, in my mind, it recognizes records information management as a profession, so that lays the groundwork for that. It incorporates 21st century record keeping, some of the things that we've been talking about in the Management Government Records Directive, moving us into the 21st century, and I think a lot of us would agree that having this job announcement was a big piece for that. I think of all the questions I get about the directive over the last 2 years, this was number one. When is this job series coming out? So glad to see it's out. Some of the things that I liked about it has in there is some of the things that I think we as records management professionals deal with day in and day out. The need for specific analysis skills, policies, procedures, an understanding of IT. You'll see some of those things in there, requiring some of those types of skill sets. And also mentions reference information governance. So it really does bring up some of the work for where it would have been 10, 20 years ago, really to what we're doing today. So in addition, obviously, it fulfills the directive item in M1218 that we established this occupation series, so we could put a big checkbox next to that one. So very happy to say that one is done and moderate. I'm curious to see how well people use that in the months and years to come on that one. As far as the scope of this, it includes positions which supervise, lead, performing RIM work, things like planning, controlling, directing, organizing, promoting. It does not cover positions with limited RIM responsibility. So if records manager is an ancillary task, this is not the job series you would use. This is for those who are doing full-time records information management work. So it covers those positions primarily responsible for the overall RIM in your program. So if it's just other duties as assigned, this would not be the series that you would use. Also happy to point out that the first one is already out there for if anyone's looking for a GS9 position in Las Vegas, which would be a cool place to go. They are using it right here. They have a Supervisory Records Information Management 308 in Vegas, so that is excellent. So excited about that. So here you can see they classified it as a GS9, but obviously that could move up and down. So that was exciting to see. So there's one. I believe there's actually another one out as well. Didn't get the agency, but someone mentioned there's actually 2 out there now. So, but this is the one that we noticed a week or so ago that was posted. So exciting to see that people are already jumping on the opportunity to do this. Again, I should mention it's in the 300 series. So like, for example, everyone might be familiar that like 306 is the Government Information Specialist position. So it does line in there with other areas that have similarities. So good to see that one is out. And if you have any questions about this fly sheet as you go through it and look at it, if you're thinking about applying or you know positions in your organization, certainly feel free to contact us. We can give you any background we have, but obviously OPM would be the best place to go as well. Dion Fortune Canada is our contact over there, and she knows we were briefing this morning, and she's happy to take any questions you might have about using the job series. And again, as I mentioned, they are very open and willing to do a webinar on this topic in the spring, so we're working with them to have Kim or someone from our staff really take a deep dive into this and help you figure out how you want to use it for your organization and answer any questions. So we're working on that as well. So that is we have. So I'd be happy to take any questions on this new fly sheet. We think it's exciting development. And Preston Huff, who is my colleague in Fort Worth, and Preston did a yeoman's work over the last 2 years working with OPM and coordinating comments back and forth, and is very familiar with what's in this document. He's on the line as well to help us take any questions. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. Yes, sir.
Is there any timelines mentioned in the announcement or the document?
Are there any timelines mentioned in the announcement or document for beginning to use this?
I seem to remember reading in the announcement that there was a 1-year deadline to implement this series.
Preston, did you hear that question?
Yeah, I think you summarized it. Yeah, I think from the time that they issued the fly sheet on March the 10th, agencies could start interpreting how to use it in the agencies, and they can start using it immediately, like you saw with the VA job announcement that you had. And over the course of the next year, OPM is going to evaluate how this is being used. So they're going to get feedback from all of the Chicos out there in the agencies to find out what are the pros and cons of using this new series. So that's the only timeline that I've heard is a pause after a 1-year period, March of 2016, to revisit this. But yeah, you can start using them now.
Okay, and we're going to monitor that. We're curious to see as others do it. We've already seen, I think we know there's 2, and hopefully there'll be more over the next months to come on this one. Other questions we can answer?
Agencies must apply this occupational series to covered positions within 12 months of the date of issuance. That may be what the gentleman was referring to. Not sure.
That sounds, I think you're correct in that. And Preston, is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Other questions?
Will this series be used for current records officers, people who are 13s and 14s, or is this a different series?
The question is, will this be used for records officers? I don't believe so, unless they would reclassify. Preston, do you have any information on that one?
Yeah, the agency records officers could be a part of this as well. It is for the agency records officers and other records management professionals in the agencies.
So I assume if they wanted to look at that, they certainly could explore that.
Just that they work with their CHICOs and their agencies and look at their own agency and how they apply these fly sheets, these new positions, and if it's a good fit in their agency.
The big takeaway that it's encouraging you to work with the human capital officer closely on these types of issues as they work with OPM to understanding what's best for their organization.
Hi, this is the first I've heard about it. Not entirely, but the first that I've heard that it's been implemented. How is this information being announced to the different agencies? How is it being communicated to the agencies?
I believe OPM sent this memo around to all of their chief human capital officers. So every agency's CHICO should have received this on March 10th. And we've promoted it for records officer information and the staff via our communication vehicles. But the formal way is that OPM sent this out on March 10th to the chief human capital officers. And Preston, anything else you want to add in terms of how they've been promoting this?
No, that's correct. OPM released it. It was sent to the chief human capital officers, and then they were supposed to share it within their agency to the records management, the RAM folks, and as Don said, through Records Express blog, we also advertised it as well.
It's on our blog, but the full package, but essentially, I know people can't see, but they sent a cover memo explaining what's in it from OPM, and then they go in, they provide the actual fly sheet itself, and then some attachments at the back kind of giving the references of how they established it. So, but the cover memo really explains what they did and what the process was. Other questions?
You stated earlier if it's a good fit for records officers and managers. When you say a good fit, does it mean, and this is far as grade structure too, to see whether or not that grade structure fits within that series, or, I mean, are we obligated to go with that? And you haven't mentioned anything about grade series either, or grade structure, rather.
I believe that those really are decisions for the human capital officer and the agency to make. I was just sort of using that word, but I think that's the thinking here is that it's something between the CHICO and their organization. Preston, you've been more closely aligned to what OPM's thinking is. Do you have some sense on that issue?
In terms of grade levels?
When they should apply it in terms of whether they want to apply it to records officers or not, and when those decisions are made.
From OPM is, like Tom was mentioning before, is if your primary responsibility is in records and information management, and your primary role is paramount. That's what you're doing. But if you're doing a whole lot of multiple types of functions like many records management professionals do, that's when you have to really check with your human capital offices to see if the bulk of what you're doing would fall into this new series.
Yeah, that answers the question because...
And it may not always be a good fit. That's what we're talking about in terms of whether it really applies.
That answers the question because in some agencies, the structure may include beyond records officers in management positions. That's
right.
Why I was concerned.
And that's the thing. And then hopefully, if you review the fly sheet and you look at it and look at the responsibilities it'll become clear when you might want to apply it and when it doesn't apply. And I think the same would apply for grade level as well. I think obviously that's working with the human capital officers and the agency to make those determinations.
So you've answered that question. It's up to the human capital office in the agencies, and they're not really forced to go to that structure. Is that correct?
Yeah, Preston, you don't have any that they're required
to go into that structure. The job series is out there. It is specific to the records and information profession, and for many of us, it really does describe what we do. And in that sense, it's a good fit for many of us. And working with your own human capital offices in the agencies, you need to determine, is this better than the other kinds of classifications that many of you are working under right now? You know, throughout federal government, we've got a whole hodgepodge of different kinds of position descriptions we work under. And this one seems to really hit modern records management. I think finally it's pulled together a good description of what we most of us are doing.
I think some of these questions that you're raising are excellent questions, and I think these are ones where if we bring in OPM and have that webinar, I think these would be the types of things that they can really get into, because this is really their business, and they can really explain some of the occupational rules and how these things are applied. So I look forward to getting that set up, and once that's set up, we'll put out the information to you so we can take a deeper dive into some of these more specific issues that you're raising. Other questions on the job series we can answer as of today?
Don, I'm sorry to ask another question, but does it cover administering the Privacy Act and FOIA?
Does it? Yeah, I think that's a difference. I don't think that's specifically called out, Rich. Any other questions? So again, I encourage everyone to take a look at the fly sheet. And I think the other thing is that we are going to work with OPM to have them do a webinar, hopefully in the spring, to really take a deeper dive. I encourage everyone to attend, to participate when we get that set up. So more information will be coming out on that soon. And with, are there any questions that came in, Angela, from anyone else? No? Okay, with that, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the Electronic Records Archive and Annual Move Updates, Kathy Westfeld and Lynn Stewart. And I will welcome up Lynn.
Thank you, Don. Good morning, and good morning to everybody who is on the very early morning schedule, like my colleague Kathy Westfeld, on the West Coast. Kathy, are you on the line?
I am here. Can you hear me clearly?
I can. Is everybody else here okay? Great. Kathy's going to start us off on discussing some updates on ERA, and I will then discuss a little bit about some annual move updates. Kathy?
And Lynn, you'll advance the slides for me?
Yes, ma'am.
Lynn, are you there?
Kathy, can you see the slides?
I cannot see the slides, but I've got them in front of me.
Okay, we are on
If
now.
you could start with the slides about changes.
Yes, absolutely. We're on slide 2.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here. As Lynn mentioned, I think I am in Southern California and cannot be with you today. I wish I could be. You might be wondering who I am and why I'm talking to you today. Mike Carlson, who many of you knew and interacted with as you began to use ERA, and even while you used ERA, he retired in January. Very well-deserved retirement, and we were quite sad to see him go. And one of his roles was the lead of the ERA user adoption activities from NARA. And when he left, I assumed some of those duties, basically took over that role in a reduced way, primarily as a facilitator, and I am still getting my feet wet a little bit. You may be seeing future communications from me from time to time, so keep an eye out for that. And by the way, I am a supervisor of a team that does a lot of work with ERA, especially on the records scheduling side. And like Mike, I also work in the Office of the Chief Records Officer, where much of the user adoption activities are managed. And so I'd just like to take a few moments here, just very briefly, and go over a few reminders about ERA, especially for those of you who are new to using ERA. And after that, I'll hand it back off to Lynn, my colleague, who will talk about the annual move. So next slide.
We're there.
If you are looking for information about ERA or ERA contacts or links to training, there are a number of helpful resources available on NARA's ERA webpage. And I encourage all of you who are particularly new users to be sure to make use of the agency user manual, which is quite rich with information and detail, and the user account guide, the newly revised ERA FAQs. We have updated those and streamlined them, and in fact, they should be posted today, or if not today, by the end of the week. And also to take the pertinent online training that's available. The training that you can get to through the webpage covers both record scheduling and transfers, and includes things like overviews, demonstrations, and guided practice. And additionally, there's some helpful crosswalk examples, if you haven't taken a look at them, that are about the SF-115 and SF-258 forms. It shows the fields from those forms and the corresponding fields in ERA. So that also is helpful. And in addition, there is instructions available there about how to request if you need a legacy schedule entered into ERA. That would be a schedule done as an SF-115 prior to the ERA system coming online. So I also recommend that users should also check back periodically to the webpage for new or updated content. And we have more content coming, and when ready, we'll ensure that you receive an announcement about that. Next slide. And another reminder that we have an ERA help desk. The help desk can answer questions regarding how to use ERA, establishing passwords, helping to navigate the forms that you're dealing with. And if they can't answer your question, because it might relate to specific scheduling or transfer procedures, for instance, they have a process in place to forward your question to the right unit in NARA so that it does get answered. And they can also address user account questions. The contact information is on the slide. It's also available on the webpage, and they are available from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So I go to the next slide, please. I just wanted to talk for a few minutes and give you some tips and reminders specifically about account management to help minimize a few issues that have surfaced recently with managing agency ERA accounts. I'd like to go over just a few tips and reminders to assist those of you who are ERA account managers. And for some agencies, the records officer is also the account manager, but in other agencies, they are two different people. Just so keep that in mind depending on what your situation might be. So the first is, and it's an important thing to be aware of, if you are a manager and a new request or a modified request comes to you for approval for one of your users to start using ERA, it's really important to check the agency field on the form before you approve. A number of agency users have been selecting their cabinet-level department instead of their component agency that they're assigned to when they fill out the online ERA account request form. And again, that's for either a new request or a modification to an existing account. So, for example, if a user is assigned to, say, the Food and Drug Administration, which is a component of the Department of Health and Human Services, the user should be sure to select Food and Drug Administration as his agency on the form, but not select Health and Human Services. If the request is approved with the wrong agency, the user will not be able to access the record schedules of their assigned agency, and they cannot create transfer requests. So basically, they cannot get access to what they need access to, and they won't be able to see it in ERA. The second reminder, and this is an important one, we've been having some issues with this recently, and that is account managers need to respond to the quarterly reauthorization requests They come from the ERA help desk, and that comes via email. Many ERA account managers didn't respond to the last quarterly reauthorization request. And what that request is asking the manager to validate that the user accounts that that manager oversees and controls and approves, that they are still valid, that the users are still there in the agency and the accounts should remain active. When they didn't respond, it resulted in a number of agency accounts being suspended. And what happens is that the ERA help desk sends 2 requests to the agency account managers, the initial one and a follow-up request if no response is received. After 30 days with no response at all from the agency, all accounts under that account manager will be suspended. And if the account manager is responsible for accounts in more than one component agency, and we have a few like that, then all of the agency accounts under that account manager will be suspended. So if more time is needed on your part to review or validate your accounts, all you have to do is just send an email back to the help desk when you receive that message, the request from them, and just say that you need more time. They'll usually give you an additional couple of weeks, and they won't suspend until they hear back from you. However, you do have a limited time to respond to them. Next slide, please. So a general reminder about account suspensions and terminations. The ERA system automatically suspends a user's account if the user does not log into ERA after 90 days. And if account is suspended, the user must contact the ERA help desk to have his account password reset. There are a couple of ways that accounts can be suspended. One I just mentioned about the 90 days, and the other one I also just mentioned, and that was if the account manager does not respond to the quarterly reauthorization request. That is the second way that an account can be suspended. So if a user keeps his account active and changes the password when he's supposed to and gets into ERA at least every 90 days, if the account manager does not respond to the reauthorization request and validate, then the account will be suspended. So there's 2 ways it can be suspended. Secondly, an account that has not been logged into in a year's time, 365 days, that will automatically be terminated by the system. And if the user needs to reinstate the account, they basically have to start over by filling out a new online request form. They just have to start from scratch again. The last thing that is important is that we need to have the agency let NARA know when your account managers change. It's really important to keep the ERA accounts office informed when that person changes. Again, they receive the quarterly reauthorization request and ask to validate the accounts of their users. And if the manager changes by moving to another job, retiring, or maybe their role has changed and they're not dealing with ERA anymore at all, and the ERA accounts office is not notified, then the list of agency users cannot be validated. And this results, as I said already, that in all users their accounts being suspended and prevents those users from accessing ERA until a new ERA account manager is designated and can then validate the accounts. So it can have quite a disruptive effect when this happens, and it does, kind of cause some extra work on the agency side as well as the NARA side to get this issue figured out. So we hope we find this information useful with managing your accounts. And these actions can help, avoid work interruptions, reduce the extra work to resolve the issues. And let me just say that we are just on the verge of emailing these tips and reminders, as I've just gone over them, to you, the agency records officers and the account managers, so you have them in hand, and that'll be very, very shortly here. So I also want to encourage you that if you have any questions about your accounts or account management or maybe why something has been suspended, please be sure to contact the help desk. So start with the help desk first, and they can tell you what's going on. And with that, I can turn it over to Lynn. I think we'll have a Q&A session at the end here, but I will turn it over to my colleague, Lynn Stewart, to talk about the annual move. So thank you very much, and I hope to be able to talk to you at future BRIDG meetings.
Thank you, Kathy. As an ERA user and account manager myself, I know up close and personal, shall we say, the importance of all of the points that Kathy just made, making sure that your own accounts are in proper order, and as an account manager that you are taking appropriate measures to ensure that your users have the accounts they need. Annual move, we talk about this every year. In fact, we talk about this all the time, all year long, actually. I'm going to start with mentioning a few things you all already know, just to establish some reminders. Again, we all know that beginning in October of 2012, the National Archives requires that agencies use ERA to schedule records or to transfer records, permanent records, to the National Archives. For the annual move, agencies use ERA to approve the transfer of permanent records from the federal record centers into the legal custody of the National Archives, into NARA's archival holdings. For each disposition year cycle, each annual move, NARA populates ERA draft transfer requests, shells of transfer requests in draft, for records that are eligible that are stored in the federal record centers. Agencies must review these draft TRs and make any needed changes to the information on them, and then submit or propose those transfer requests, those TRs, to the National Archives. We are finding, as we had hoped to begin with, that ERA is giving us an opportunity to improve our processes. We think that they're helping to improve processes in the agency and in the National Archives. We're also seeing a lot more transparency. We can see, and you can see, what the status of our transfer action is in terms of legal transfer of records from the federal record centers to the National Archives. In 2015, we loaded over 10,633 to be exact, transfer requests on behalf of agencies into ERA at the beginning of FY15 for those records that were eligible in 2015. Of those, 117.4 cubic feet, approximately 20,000 cubic feet has already been transferred to the physical custody of the National Archives. It's been only a little over 3 months now since most of those records, the bulk of them, became legally eligible for transfer, which for most of them, again, was on the 1st of January, calendar year 2015. So things are moving along quite well there. However, most of the transfer requests that were provided to agencies for this work are still in draft. If you haven't, of course, acted on your transfer request, if you have not reviewed them and proposed them to NARA, you are still paying for record storage for those records to the Federal Record Center program. There is, however, plenty of time to work on those. As you know, while we use the term annual move for each disposition year cycle, it's shorthand, it's easier to deal with. A lot of work goes on throughout every year, every fiscal year, every calendar year, both on the agency side and on the National Archives side. While we load these things once a year, and we focus on a disposition year cycle, we're always engaged in working on these annual moves virtually throughout the year. So, 2015, while the primary eligibility date has already passed and many, many records have already been physically transferred, there is, of course, still plenty of time for you to finish your review and propose these to NARA for transfer. A couple of upcoming dates for 2015. Transfer requests proposed to NARA custodial units, archival custodial units, by the 1st of June are eligible for consideration and eligible for approval by those units for what we call the summer transfer. Basically, we're talking about the July, August, and September quarter. Transfers, however, that are eligible beginning in 2015 are going to continue to be eligible throughout the calendar year 2015. So you still have time, even after the 1st of June, obviously, to finish your review, get your updates done, and get them in the queue for the archival units to review. Let's look at the timeline, having reminded ourselves that we're frequently working on more than one thing at a time. I'll do a lot of multitasking. This is the basic timeline for agencies for the first part of 2016 annual move activity. These are the key dates for 2016. There's one change in the basic timeline for agencies from the last couple of years. In early July, you'll receive a spreadsheet of ARCIS information on the 2016 transfers so that you can begin reviewing those transfers and determining whether or not they should be transferred into NARA's archival holdings. We've received very, very positive feedback on getting an ARCIS list ahead of the load of the transfer request into ERA. Last couple of years, we have been doing it at the beginning of August. This year, again, agencies have encouraged us to do this. We are going to get that list to you at the beginning of July. So you have another 30 days to work on your review and make your decisions and update any information that needs to be updated. After we distribute that ARCIS spreadsheet in July, we will, as usual, provide a webinar which will assist you in using the ARCIS spreadsheet for your review. We actually do a pretty deep dive. Don's been talking about doing deep dives into the OPM fly sheet. We also do a very deep dive when we are looking at the ARCIS data. So we'll be having that webinar after we have sent you the spreadsheets, when they're still fresh in your mind, during the course of July this summer, to talk about how you use that data to conduct your reviews. On or about October 1st, the shutdown in 2013 taught me never to say on a certain day. That particular annual move group of transfer requests were delayed a little bit because we were shut down on the 1st of October of that year. On or about the 1st of October, this year, 2015, we will have the transfer request ready for you in ERA, in draft shells, ready for your action. Also, as usual, in the October and November timeframe, we will offer a webinar. Most years we've done this a couple of times. If we find we have a good response to the first one, we will usually offer it a second time. And this will concentrate, as usual, on using ERA for the annual move and consists of, again, of a deep dive into what every field on the transfer request in those drafts means and what kinds of considerations you need to take in order to validate that information and move forward to propose those PRs to the National Archives. We do ask that you complete that first information, that first review by the 1st of December. if you want your records to be considered for physical transfer into NARA's holdings in the winter quarter, the January through March quarter. We need that planning time. We need time to respond to you. And by the 15th of January, you should receive a response from the custodial unit, from the archival unit that you have proposed those records to, either approving your transfer request, or perhaps the custodial unit, the archival unit, will be in touch with you by phone or by email to ask you questions if there are things about a specific transfer request or requests that they have for you. Or you may receive a quote-unquote rejection. That TR may be returned to you in draft format with a comment about why it was returned to you and why it was rejected. The July through 1 December timeframe gives your agency 5 months, 150 days, to do your reviews and to make a determination and to propose those so that those records can be moved at the earliest possible date, which is in the January-March winter timeframe. NARA's deadline for physically transferring records that have been appropriately proposed by you, approved by the archival units, is the end of March of that year. So in the case of 2015, the transfer requests go into ERA on the 1st of October. You propose them by the 1st of December. The archival units respond, approving or denying or asking you questions by the 15th of January, and we're into 2016 at this point. All that works, then NARA will physically transfer those records and get them off your FRC bill by the end of that quarter, which is the 31st of March, 2016. A quick note for those of you who have classified or formerly classified records that are eligible for transfer to the National Archives. Remember that you must attach to your transfer request a completed classified records transfer checklist, which is in a form 14130, before you submit that transfer request to NARA. For more information about this, we've included the URL for the National Declassification Center's posting of that form. The form is available online. There's a lot of other information available online. And actually, I took a look at the form the other day, and the form itself includes telephone numbers for Dave Mingle and Don McElwain, so that you can call them directly with questions about how to use this form, what's acceptable in the form, and any further information you might need. And if you can't remember that, they have a very easy email address, actually. It's ndc@nara.gov. Couple of things about the July spreadsheets. Again, we'll do this really, really, really specifically in July if you would like to participate in that particular webinar. But there are a few things you need to be thinking about your eligible records. There are some very key points, key considerations. You need to validate the information that you're getting on the spreadsheets. This will be ARCIS information. The data that we put into ERA on your behalf is based on what's in ARCIS. So the better the ARCIS data is, the better the information in ERA will be. Review those disposition authorities. Make sure that the appropriate disposition authority is assigned to the appropriate records. Review the information about any restrictions, whether they're classified, not just national security classified information, of course, but also any restrictions concerning personally identifiable information, law enforcement information, let's see, big one, sensitive proprietary business information, that kind of thing. It's not just national security classified materials. and also make sure that those records are not needed for current business. The examples we've given you here are sometimes your agency is in litigation discovery, or you may be actively responding to an extensive FOIA request for those records, and that's another consideration. Those are the big ones. We are, again, sending you the ARCIS list in July. We would love to have your feedback on updates, questions, of course, about the spreadsheet or anything else, but also any updates you have for us to make the information we have about those records more accurate, more up-to-date. We ask that you send those changes to the annual move mailbox, annual.move@nara.gov. Please submit those in spreadsheet format by the 5th of August. If we can get those in spreadsheet format by the 5th of August, we will do anything possible, everything possible, to get the appropriate information updated and reflect those changes, those updates, those revisions in the transfer requests that we are providing to you at the beginning of October. If we don't get them by the 5th of August, or if we can't get them in a spreadsheet format, if you write us War and Peace instead, we cannot really commit to trying to get those reflected in the transfer request we load for you, and you will need to make those changes, your agency will need to make those changes yourself once the transfer requests are in draft. So give us some time, and we will make those changes for you. Otherwise, you'll need to make them manually after the transfer requests are loaded. We really appreciate the work that you all do to get us the best possible information about the records that need to be transferred into the National Archives. We really appreciate what you're doing to make sure that the historically valuable records of the United States and the records that tell the story of your agency are appropriately preserved in the National Archives. That's what this is about. So, when you need to talk to us, you can always pick up the phone, obviously, but annual.move@nara.gov for about the 4th time. Today, the 1,000,000th time overall. We have a number of people monitoring that mailbox who have expertise broadly across accessioning activities in the National Archives. So please use that. We have the ERA Help Desk information, again, for the second time in this slide deck, I think. The telephone number, erahelp@nara.gov. You can contact, of course, your NARA appraisal archivist if you're concerned about scheduling issues. You may have a relationship with an accessioning archivist, and you may contact Kathy Westfeld in California. Here is her NAR email address and phone number. Thank you very much. And are there any questions?
Yes. Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
On the TRs that stay behind, let's say an agency completes 99% of the TRs that are eligible for processing. But there are a couple that, for various reasons, the stakeholders are still reviewing. And they're not done within the 5-month, or let's say they're not done even within that year, let's say 14, for example. What is the business process for those TRs that remain in ERA? Is it correct, and this is what I'm hearing from my staff, is it correct that the National Archives removes them? Or do they remove them because they reissue it again in 15 as work that continues to be eligible for transfer? And I have a follow-up.
Okay. The National Archives issued a bulletin, I should have it memorized, but I will get back to you with the actual number. Last year, about the expiration of those draft shell TRs. These are things that you're not going to propose for whatever reason, and they are just sort of sitting there cluttering up the system. You all are aware of this. We are aware of it. And we issued a bulletin on the expiration of those transfer requests. Those specific kinds of transfer requests will expire, quote unquote, expire 15 months after they are created if they were created by NARA. If you created this yourself in your agency, we are not touching those. If you want them deleted, you can delete them. If you decide that you are not ever going to, or not going to propose those records, or if there's something so wrong with the data in that transfer request, it's not useful to you. You need to start over. So they are expiring. They have expired. The ones that we loaded in for 2012, the ones we loaded for 2013, and in January, the ones that we loaded for 2014 expired. We will be deleting those. We are now working on the technical processes for deleting those untouched transfer requests, unused transfer requests, the shells of those transfer requests. Even as I speak, actually. So we will be deleting NARA-created expired transfer requests, expired per the bulletin. I'm not completely sure exactly when we're going to do it, but we anticipate doing it relatively soon. We're hoping to. Follow-on question.
The question had two parts. If they're deleted, as you indicated by bulletin instructions, will these transfers reemerge in the next calendar or fiscal year? My follow-up's not there, but that was the second part.
Good. That's an excellent question. Many of you are aware of our current practice, which is for the bulk of a transfer request load at the beginning of any given fiscal year, say for 2015. Not only did we include transfers that became eligible in 2015, we went back and picked up transfers that ARCIS tells us were overdue for transfer, 5 years overdue, 10 years overdue, 15 years overdue, and 20 years overdue. So included in the 2015 TRs were TRs for 2010, 2005, 2000, and 1995. We are currently planning to continue that process. That allows agencies and the National Archives to get regular bites of the apple, and it also means that our resources and your resources are spread out a little bit. One of the things we don't want to have happen is for a transfer request that was loaded in 2015 that was, for whatever reason, not proposed by your agency, for the same group of records sitting in an FRC to pop up again in 2016. That overlap creates an issue, which is, again, one of the reasons we feel that it's important to delete those old, unused, unneeded, out-of-date transfer requests. And we're looking forward to getting rid of those.
Okay, I thank you. That's a very good business practice, and the reason why I see value there is because it takes approximately 45 steps to generate ATR in the system. To go through the entire life cycle of the TR signature, we had my staff look into this. And so when one is deleted, and if the agency were to create it, that's additional steps that we would have to do. But if they come back next year, then that makes sense to us because, again, we are only in the position not of creating the TR, but rather on pushing it out through the approval process. I guess my follow-up was, and I'm not sure that whether this would be handled by you within the context of your presentation, but is there a part in the ERA website that shows what are the new features, the new functionality that's been considered for the system? I know a while back we had enumerated some things, and NARA's working on some of the things that it's trying to add to the ERA. Is there an area on the website that shows what NARA's doing currently overall in terms of enhancements to ERA?
I'm going to refer that back to Kathy very quickly. Kathy?
On the website that talks about that, NARA is going through some processes right now to, and I am not the expert on this. I'm not in the IT area, but to quote refactor ERA and working toward some other needs that NARA has to make all of this work and with vastly improved functionality. It's taking a lot of time, as these things do, but my understanding is there's really nothing at this time that is being either added or increased functionality or new functionality to the current system that we're all using at this time. But there is nothing on the website about that, no.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. So in one of your slides, you mentioned that you have to look at your records and see if you still have a business use for them, such as FOIA or discovery. How should agencies respond if after December 1st, we send you our proposed TRs, and then, a month later we get a FOIA request? Is it still our legal responsibility to deliver those for that FOIA request?
That depends on where the accessioning process is at the point you receive the request. Up until the point where they're in physical and legal custody of the National Archives, yes, it's your responsibility. So, again, it's all a matter of timing, and if you have those kinds of concerns, then you really need to be in touch with us. If it's something you proposed a transfer request for in November, you get a request for those records that are still in the FRCs at that point. In December, then they are your responsibility. And you definitely need to be in contact with the FRC as well as the appropriate archival unit to make sure that those don't disappear from the shelf just as your FOIA people need them. Because those kinds of things happen. Everything is in motion all the time.
So if NARA has already taken physical custody, not legal custody, is that still at the point where if you've already taken physical custody, are we then not responsible? Or where's the line?
The space between physical and legal custody?
When we are no longer responsible for discovery and FOIA requests for that information.
My understanding from my archival colleagues is that it's the point of legal custody.
Lynn,
yes.
This is Rich Noble, NARA. That period between December 1st and January 15th, is that when the NARA accessioning archivists actually look at some of the records and just to see whether they're really what they're supposed to be? Am I right about that?
You are correct about that. It's also happening prior to the transfer request going into ERA in the first place. Especially in the Washington, D.C. area, where there are many, many, many permanent records. There's a larger percentage of permanent records here, for obvious reasons, than there might be in other federal record centers and other parts of the country. Not that there aren't permanent records generated all over the country and of course, in every agency. Many of those potentially eligible transfers for 2016 are being previewed by archival staff and other folks here in the DC area, as well as in the field for field archives and other FRCs. So that process for 2016 has actually been underway for at least 6 months. It will continue through the spring and the summer, and it will continue as agencies propose transfer requests. Yes, we want to make sure that the records that are coming into the National Archives are indeed properly identified as permanent, because things happen, as we all know. The wrong authority gets put on the 135, or somebody miskeys something.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Good question.
I just have a question about. Anyways, I have a question about. You mentioned just for DHS, but what are you doing with those PRs that are available and ready for things for like agencies that are no longer around, like INA or Customs, or I'm sorry, INS, Customs? Are you contacting like the records officer for DHS to figure out who has the responsibility of those records, or?
That is an interesting and complex question, which varies depending on the specific circumstances of where the functions of the original agency went, what the successor agency is, or successor agencies are, and what the specific records are. That is a challenge very often for records officers. Working for DHS, you have a lot of interesting challenges there, as do we on the NARA side. So if you have questions about which successor agencies do these original records belong to, that's an excellent conversation to have with your FRC folks and even your archival units and annual move folks. Because we're working constantly on sorting this out. Government, like anything else, never stays the same, and as you know. But that, yes, that is a challenge, and every set, as I said, has a specific set of parameters or challenges that have to be figured out. Thank you for bringing it up.
One last quick question.
Certainly.
You stated that the TRs that have been expired, are you going to place them back in the system again? I just want to clarify.
Okay, the process, we have not yet deleted the TRs that are expired. We're working on our technical SOPs. We want to make sure we get it right. We will, this once, before we make that first deletion, be reaching out and notifying via email the agencies that are affected, okay? We're not going to do this every time, but before we do it the first time, we will let you know. We want to make sure all of our ducks are rowed up properly before we actually do it. However, the point that I want to reiterate is we will go back and pick up those transfers in 5-year increments. They won't be loaded again next year. They won't be loaded again in 2 years. We are using a 5-year increment. If, at any time, you want to propose those records and it's not on that current, on our current practice of 5-year increments, if you're 3 years out and you say, well, these are really ready, and you want to create a TR and propose those to the appropriate archival unit, you may do that at any time. That's true of anything in the Federal Record Centers. You need to work with the appropriate archival unit, create your own TR, and go with the instructions that that archival unit gives you. Any online questions, Angela? Thank you very much. I appreciate your attention and all of your hard work. And your wonderful questions.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Our next presentation is updates on ARCIS training and forthcoming developments from John McEvoy. John's a management analyst in our Federal Records Center program. So please welcome John McEvoy.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good to see everybody. It's always great to come down to BRIDG. For me, I don't get to attend many of these meetings because I'm usually on the road harking about ARCIS somewhere in the D.C. area or somewhere in the United States. So it's always good to come and visit and see friends, meet new people, and especially visit with those who have been down the ARCIS road with me somewhere during the last 2.5 years. So as my first slide displays, I have an announcement to make, and I don't know about you, but I certainly felt it as I ascended from the depths of the metro station today. There's a real buzz about this announcement in Washington. Couldn't you feel it? It's everywhere. Now I've got to figure out how to use this thing. There we go. Well, before we get started and I tell you about the announcement, I was asked to give a little bit of a history lesson on ARCIS for those who may not be familiar with it. Some of you in attendance today may be brand new here and working in the records office of your agency, and so you need to know a little bit about ARCIS so that later on you can talk to me about deploying the new version of the ARCIS customer portal, or rather the upgraded version of the ARCIS customer portal. Well, a long time ago when I started with the Record Center program back in, July 2001, we had this system called NARS 5. It was very antiquated, not a lot of bells and whistles, old mainframe system. I lovingly called it our old vacuum tube system that was operated by the VA in their Austin Automation Center. And it was becoming clearly apparent, especially with other record center operation programs out in the country, it was necessary to redesign and upgrade our current operating system. And that's how ARCIS was born. We started in August of 2006 in Philadelphia. I remember the date well. It was August 20th, right around the time that my son was born. And through the next 3 fiscal years, most notably through some of our famous dry run meetings towards the end of it all, we put together this, with our contractor Optimus International, we put together this new system that became known as ARCIS. And ARCIS, the ARCIS name actually was presented to us by a lady named Kim Coriat from the Clinton Presidential Library. And ARCIS apparently is a Greek word that means strong box. So the acronym of Archives and Records Center Information System and ARCIS, strong box, go well together. Well, most of our focus during those 3 years, of course, was on the Record Center operating system itself, and not so much on the customer portal. So the original incarnation of the customer portal was a little bit lackluster, and it only allowed for reference requests, and it only allowed for one access control, and that was for the record group to which a user profile was assigned. And that particular user then could order anything from any of the holdings across all of the record centers for the particular record group to which they were assigned. And this was not a good thing, and we recognized that almost immediately upon deployment, as did several other agencies who will remain nameless at this time. So we needed to get to work on that, and during FY10, we got together with several agencies, notably Bureau of Prisons, Department of Justice, and some others, and we started to craft different ideas about how we could develop a better ARCIS customer portal and a better experience for our customers to conduct transactions with the Record Center program, but also to enable some other quality functions that were never available before. Those being the 4 interdependent components, which I'll talk about on the next slide. So we finally got the portal up and running, and to date, it's actually not 52 agencies. GSA just deployed yesterday, so I'm up to 53 agencies that are using the upgraded version of the portal. But notably, DOJ was the first to deploy in September 2011. I'll never forget that because we dragged all of their future users of the portal through a full day and a half of intensive classroom training, which ultimately led to eyes rolling in the back of their heads, et cetera, and we decided that we needed to shorten the training program significantly, and that's when we came up with my live training show that many of you have experienced, where I talked ad nauseum for 4 consecutive hours about introduction and navigation, records transfers, reference requests, and ultimately user administration. But I have more news about training in a few minutes. Well, a little bit about the infrastructure of ARCIS. These are the 4 pillars upon which ARCIS is built. We call them the 4 interdependent components. The first one being user administration, which upon deployment, agencies take over full responsibility for the creation, modification, and inactivation of users of the system. No longer will our ARCIS help desk in St. Louis accept new user applications from deployed agencies. Instead, they will forward those applications to whomever is assigned as the super administrator for a deployed agency, and that super administrator can then make decisions as to whether or not that particular application should be added to the ARCIS system. Now, along with user administration, this is where you log into the system and you create or modify or inactivate user profiles. And in each user's profile are access controls. Access controls I'll talk about on the next slide, but access controls can do 2 things. Number 1, it restricts the records that a particular user can retrieve from the record centers. So for example, in a very robust agency where you have multiple record groups, multiple charge accounts or charge codes, different security classifications and security levels, as well as storage in perhaps all 17 of our federal record centers across the United States. And lots of holdings, hundreds of thousands of cubic feet of holdings. Well, now you can restrict users to a specific subset of the overall holdings for your agency by virtue of perhaps assigning only one record group, only one charge account, only one security classification and level, and then only one record center. So the overall universe of all your federal record center holdings now becomes a very small set of things that you can retrieve from the record centers. In addition to access controls, the second thing is it also restricts the type of new records transfer that a user can create, provided they are even given the capability to create records transfers. So you can, again, restrict by virtue of record group, record center, security classification and level, and charge account, the type of new records transfer that you can create. Now, thinking about some things that Lynn said as kind of a promotion to get on board with ARCIS, wouldn't it be nice to be able to look at ARCIS or log into ARCIS, go to records transfers, and drill down on the specific SF-135 information that is available to you so you can compare and contrast with what ERA is telling you? That would be a nice feature for you to consider as you think about deploying the new version of ARCIS. Certainly the third interdependent component is records transfers. This is the darling everybody's been waiting for. I'll use my old tagline, apologies to those that have heard this for the umpteenth time, but no longer will you have to haul out your antique 1940s paper SF-135 and pop it into your 1972 vintage IBM Selectric typewriter, probably with carbon paper, and pop it in the U.S. Postal Service and mail it to the Federal Record Center of your choice. No. Now you'll be able to type this information into the system, and perhaps using the optional internal agency approval process, you can pass that information along to another internal agency approver, and that person can make decisions about this new records transfer and then forward it along to the record center, or perhaps pass it back to the person who created it, and they can make the changes if you want them to learn from their mistakes. So lots of good things with records transfers. And lastly, age-old reference requests, which is what the current version of the portal has, with the exception of the fact that we can now apply the access controls. Now, I did already talk quite a bit about the access control feature, but there is a fifth and optional access control called agency-defined fields. And this allows agencies to come up with any type of nomenclature that they want. Usually small office abbreviations work best, so that you can further divide your holdings along with the 4 access controls that already exist. And this works very, very well for very small agencies with a small number of holdings that want to enable some sort of access controls. So maybe you want Department A, Department B, and Department C to make it simple. And you can now take your 99 transfers, if you wanted to, 33 of them are Department A, 33 are Department B, 33 are Department C. And then when you using user administration, if you assign Department A to a specific user, that person will only be able to retrieve Department A records. So the optional agency-defined field is something that you also need to know about. All right, here it is, the big announcement. Effective October 1st, 2016, that's FY17, so we've got a year and a half, actually 370 business days from today. All new records transfers and reference requests should be sent to us via the ARCIS customer portal, okay? The reason for this is, and you want to get on board with the ARCIS portal, is that the Record Center program will develop over the next year different rates, one for portal-borne transactions versus non-portal-borne transactions. We realize that there are going to be certain situations across the globe, quite frankly, where it's just not practical to log into ARCIS and type up an SF-135 via the portal. It still has to come in the old-fashioned way through the paper 135 or perhaps an emailed 135, similar with a reference request or OF-11. So that is the huge announcement. Breathe, everybody. It's over. That's it. But, again, 53 agencies have deployed, so that leaves us, by last count, about 125 to go in the next year and a half. So it's time to move forward and start thinking about the ARCIS customer portal. Now, other benefits about the portal. You can control your users. You can control who conducts business with the Federal Record Center, because eventually, after you get through deployment and you settle in for a little while, what you're going to want to do is declare to the Federal Record Center program that we're going portal only. And about 6 agencies have done that thus far. And what it does is it completely encloses the circle of who conducts business with the Federal Record Center from a new transfer standpoint as well as a reference request standpoint. Because with user administration, you're controlling who has access to the ARCIS customer portal. Now think, too, about some of the other benefits as well. You get better tracking and accounting of your holdings. You can see all of your transactions online now. And for those of you familiar with ARCIS, you know that we're very status happy, where reference requests go from reference initiated to reference submitted to reference in progress to ready for shipment, ultimately to shipped. You can now follow that in ARCIS. Same with your brand new records transfers as well. You can follow your transfer as it goes through all the statuses, ultimately to disposition. We also feel that you can submit your transactions much faster and with greater accuracy, and another aspect of this, better data continuity, particularly for records transfers, because of our copy function in records transfers and in reference requests, where you can copy over about 80% of the data of a previously submitted records transfer, so that it saves you a little bit of time on the data entry. But again, for that data consistency, I don't know how many times, this is going way back into 2001, 2002, when I worked in Philadelphia, where they had me approve new records transfers. And I can't tell you how many variations of abbreviations that I saw for different words. And from a searching aspect, by using the query functionality in ARCIS, if you have a specific word spelled the same way in all of your records transfers, that's going to help you in your search for some of your data. Certainly the portal, and I speak from experience with this, the new version or the upgraded version of the portal is a much better experience than we had with the old version, much more robust, user-friendly, intuitive, etc. Now again, some of the new things that I want to talk about this morning. Only 370 business days till October 1st, 2016. So you've got a bit of a time frame to consider there. Now, one of the things that I've worked on is, we've been working on this for, 2.5 years, only 53 agencies on board. What can we do to get the deployment experience better for our customers? And one of the initial shock features of post-deployment is a thing that I termed ARCIS Monday. And ARCIS Monday meant that, for example, on Friday, you were using the old version of the system. Over the weekend, we would deploy you, turn on all the bells and whistles, throw this lever, turn this dial, etc., and suddenly you were deployed. Well, all of the existing user profiles would come over as is from the old system. So most of those profiles only had a record group in them, maybe a charge account, maybe a record center, probably not a security classification and level because it wasn't a requirement. So when your agency deployed with access controls activated, all of a sudden that user would log in and try to place a reference request. They couldn't do it. So the phenomenon known as ARCIS Monday was born, which meant that you had to, as user administrators, you had to go in and modify everybody's profile immediately so that they could get back to work and start placing reference requests with the Federal Records Center, as well as perhaps assign new capabilities to their profiles with records transfers, etc. So we thought about this, and remember that with the current version of the portal, the older version of the portal, you had access to everything in your assigned record group. Well, now, why not make that happen upon deployment so that it's almost transparent to our users? So Rachel Vera, and Rachel, if you're out there, good morning. I know you're not feeling well. I hope you feel better soon. Rachel Vera from Department of Labor, I pitched this idea to her, as well as our new training videos, and she said, yeah, well, let's try it. Let's give it a go. So what we did is we took all the existing users and we modified their profiles pre-deployment to include a branch for hierarchical structure. We retained their same record group. We gave them all available charge accounts because with Department of Labor, multiple record groups, multiple charge accounts. So essentially we loaded up all the existing users with absolutely everything that they needed so that they had the same access on Monday as they did on Friday. From there, the DOL user administrators went in and began rapidly modifying profiles, again, to give records transfer capabilities, but also to craft the appropriate user profile for each of their users across the United States. The nice thing was they could work on 5 a day and not have this intense pressure of service disruption over their shoulders. And instead of me, and in terms of training now, over the past 2 years, I had recorded 16 individual ARCIS training videos, and what Rachel chose to do was to have all of her existing users watch specific videos that they needed to watch, because they're broken up into introduction and navigation, records transfers, reference requests, and user administration. They would watch the appropriate videos and then would self-certify to Rachel that they had watched them, and then Rachel would give them her new user ID and password, or then assign them records transfer capabilities, etc. So unfortunately, no longer, I didn't have to go there, and the poor DOL group didn't have to listen to me drone on for 4 straight hours about ARCIS. Instead, now with the training videos, you have only 2.5 hours of videos to watch. But the nice thing is, if you only are going to give reference request capabilities to a specific user, they can watch modules 1 and 2, which are the introduction and navigation, and then the 3 or 4 individual reference request videos. And then they're done in about an hour, hour and a half with training. There's also, speaking of training, I finally migrated all of the training materials onto our ARCIS website, which is found at www.archives.gov/frc/ARCIS, and then you click the Get Training link, and from there you have access to all of the training materials that we've ever posted online. User Administration Manual, Records Transfer Manual, the old original, which are still a little outdated, but they're still relevant. Other tutorials that Don Greenlee had produced. So all of it's there in one place, and you can direct your users to go to that site, watch the appropriate videos, and get trained. We did also make a decision recently that access controls are now access controls will be activated for all subsequent deployments. One of the things that you want us to do is take better care of who is accessing your records. And by virtue of closing the loop, as I had mentioned earlier, on ARCIS via user administration and going portal only, we can do that for you. So that's why we're going to deploy now every agency with access controls activated. Now, you do need to get in touch with me soon. Here is my contact information. You were also given some information about ARCIS. Here's a little brochure about all our ARCIS training videos, some ARCIS facts. My name and contact information is displayed down here. Occasionally, you might pop out of a metro station somewhere and see me hawking ARCIS, on some street corner somewhere in Northwest DC. No, I'm just kidding. But it's time to get on and start using the technology that we have to offer. For those of you that have already gone down the deployment path with me, I think they would agree that it's relatively painless. Some of the setup things that you need to consider can be a little confusing at first, but once you get used to it, it's not so bad. But along with that, there are two ways of going through deployment strategy with me now. We could do this very simply, where you give me the names of up to 2 super administrators, and what we'll do is we'll deploy you with a flat hierarchical organization in terms of user administration with access controls turned on, and then we will run the new deployment package for your agency where all existing users will be preloaded with all of the access controls with reference requests only, and boom, you're deployed. And then later you can make decisions about enriching your experience with the ARCIS customer portal through hierarchical structures, etc. But really, I think the preferred way to do it is to have me come down to your office, conference room setting, computer connected to the internet, projector, and I'll give you a very detailed demonstration about the ARCIS customer portal, and we'll go through what I call the famous list of questions, which are things for you to consider. Who the super administrators are going to be. Do you want a hierarchical structure or not? How big's your agency? Is it important for you to centralize user administration responsibilities or spread it out to other administrators across different branch levels across your agency? Completely up to you. So there's a lot of customization that we can discuss during that meeting. You don't have to give me answers at that meeting. You can think about it with your team a little bit and then get back to me. We'll start walking you through the process some more. Ultimately, we'll make the final decisions, and we'll finally together say, come on, we're going to jump out the airplane together, and we'll move forward. And it takes about 2 weeks. I submit the deployment package to the contractor, and they do their magic, and suddenly the 2 super administrators get emails from me, as well as my sending out of a massive email blast to any and all Federal Records Center individuals who need to know about your deployment, so that they too are aware to start expecting your new records transfers that come through the portal. So anyway, 370 business days, okay? New rates in about a year and a half. Questions? This one up there. And don't forget, I forgot to mention this, David. David told me to remind everybody, if you're online, don't forget to email in your questions to me here. Hi.
We've been using ARCIS, and I was wondering about having ticklers or some type of notification so that our customers would know when we transferred it, when you've transferred it to NARA for approval and so forth, and when it's been approved.
No, that's good. That's good. Many of you have heard this before. The Siebel platform upon which ARCIS is built does have an email notification system in place. But what it does is with every change in status for a particular transaction, it sends out an email. So you submitted reference, or you submit a new records transfer. It's been sent to the approver. The approver would get an email. The creator would get an email that says it's in review requested process. They send it. The approver sends it back. Now it's in corrections requested status. More emails. And on and on and on. And as we discuss this in the early stages of ARCIS development, people started to get this horrified look in their eye and said, I get enough emails as it is, please don't do that. However, the future is bright. That's one of my big, long list of enhancements that I have from meeting with so many agencies. That's one of them. I think the most popular one would be for the the person who is approving records transfers created by others, if they would get an email that says, you have a records transfer that's awaiting your approval. Please log into ARCIS and do your thing. So long list of enhancements. So that's one of them. Questions? Emailed questions? Anything?
John?
Yes, where are you?
Right here.
Hey, how you been?
Good, good. The FRC does a great job supporting ARCIS and the many services that the record centers provide. One thing that we enjoy using is the sort of a database dump for analytics. Where periodically we ask a whole listing of all the holdings, and we do some analytics, maybe for reappraisal purposes and so forth. Which thought about it, if we're deploying a new version, what plans perhaps in the future are there to enhance reporting capabilities at the top, so that perhaps there'll be a feature in the new ARCIS that you click on it and it actually downloads something that gives the administrator all the current holdings.
Right.
And then it just nothing fancy in Excel format or even comma delimited, but something that then the agency can take and do some post-processing analytics that will help do some projections and so forth. I was wondering if you had any any kind of input.
I have some thoughts on the matter.
Right, on that or any other type of reportings that would enhance an administrator's view of the ARCIS horizon.
Sure. A couple things on that. Omar was asking about the report capabilities within the ARCIS customer portal. And for those of you that use the ARCIS customer portal, up at the top right, particularly in records transfers, you see a little drop-down box, and it says reports on it, and you know deep down in your heart that we're just teasing you. The only report that you can get out of the ARCIS customer portal is the ARCIS-born version of the SF-135, where we take the data from the fields and populate it in certain areas of a very authentic-looking 1940s version of the SF-135. But I'm with you. As one who uses our business analytics package at my office and from home, where I am at least on a daily basis creating and sending out an inventory report of all of your live holdings to either a customer service representative or to a customer. I would love for you to be able to produce your own reports. That too, again, is on the list, the long list of enhancements. It's not available yet, but it's something that I think with our new management in place, as new management gets in place, I think that we're going to talk about that at length and see if there isn't something that we can offer you. Even if it's something as simple as you run a query and then you schedule the report, it might take a day, but then it automatically comes through and then you can download it from there in CSV or Excel formats, or even maybe at a PDF. Well, I don't want to go PDF because then you can't massage the data that way. So it's on the books. It's just not. We just don't have it available yet. I want it there for you. Believe me.
Nothing fancy. I'm just thinking.
What's that?
Would that be customizing your field?
Customizing the fields. Well, maybe we can look at that. I mean, in terms of what column headers you want displayed? Exactly. Yeah. We'll have to talk about it.
John, I just wanted to follow up. Nothing fancy. If you do a data dump, let the agency figure out what they want.
Gotcha.
Because otherwise you have 200 different. I mean, you'll have 200 customers asking you 300 different things.
Oh,
yes. if you just
really?
Yes. Just give them
Absolutely.
a data dump and let them feed themselves.
Sure, got it. Anybody else? Sir.
Yes, quick question. So we have to actually come to you. That, hey, Artie is ready to move over to this new ARCIS section of the portal. There's going to be no set schedule like by July 2015, it did the airport by 2015 of the end of this year, we're going to get other agencies involved. We have to actually seek.
Correct. Yep. Sooner the better, I think, because, like I said, I've got about 125 to go, and I bet my mailbox is going to light up tonight like you can't believe. But keep in mind, at least for the rest of the next, 3.5 weeks, I'll be in Chicago twice and Dayton on our program review team, examining our record centers there. So I'm going to be a little bit out of pocket for the next few weeks. But once May and June hit, I'll be full stride on ARCIS deployments, and we'll get you through this. I haven't let anybody down yet.
Hey, John, how you doing? Ivan King, Department of Energy.
Ivan, where are you? There you are. How you been?
How's it going? Good. Well, I was actually at DOJ and a part of the training session, so my eyes are still spinning a little bit.
Right.
But a quick question with regards to functionality. Does the new portal allow you to search on the disposition or authority number to provide you with all the...
Yeah, it's in the query functionality already. If you were to go to agency-wide view or profile-specific view, remember it splits into my agency workspace or FRC workspace. So if you know that the transfer is already in the record center, then you would navigate to FRC workspace, then hit the query button, and one of the data fields that's available to you is the disposition authority. Now, don't forget the query operators that we talked about in training, like putting like an asterisk in front or behind certain characters that'll help expand the search, and then you can refine from there a bit.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Sure.
Hey, John. Cecilia Espinoza from EOR.
Hey.
Question that we're having, or issue, is on when individuals are making requests, there's nothing in the request that's allowing us to see what is actually being requested. Is there any possibility, so you can see that a request was made and part of the whole opportunity was not to duplicate requests. That was one of the benefits we thought we would get out of ARCIS.
Okay.
But what we're looking at is each section that's making a request would have to go through every request that's been made to determine
out of
whether...
a transfer number and perhaps out of a specific container number.
Right. And so the question was, is there any way that you guys know if we've already made a request so that when somebody types in the exact same request, we can get a notification on that? Or how is that working in ARCIS?
Many things come to mind, actually. I talked about different ways of abbreviating things before. And somebody might ask for a specific file and abbreviate something, where somebody else might ask for a specific file and spell it all out. How does the system automatically identify that, oh yeah, that's the same file. Hey, you've already requested this before. Well, I know from my private sector experience, really the answer to that is, and I don't know if we're ready to go in that direction, is the individual listing of individual files within the boxes that become a hard-coded line item that have their own little life cycle of their own as they go through reference processes. So that way, if your agency is a individually listed customer and they ask for McAvoy out of transfer number this, that, and the other thing, box number 7, okay? It won't allow anybody to type in and create a new file. What it is what it is, unless you give us a specific list. So that way, if you go in there, you'll drill down on the container number. All right, I need box 7. Click. Now drill down on that box, and it'll show the files that are available. McAvoy, out. It says it's out as opposed to available or whatever status we have.
Is that possible now?
No, not right now. Not right now. No, this is me just doing the brainstorming thing. I think I eat, drink, and sleep the ARCIS customer portal, and so I need something. So unfortunately, no. I think in the query fields that there is, you can look it up by transfer. You can go to reference requests, agency-wide view, look up the transfer number, not just strictly the file number.
That's what I'm saying. You
Yes. Yeah, for a specific transfer and container and go, oh boy, there's 70 requests on this one box, and see if it's been charged out. But then again, as another enhancement, it may show that it's been requested. How do you know if it's been refiled or not yet? And that's another one that I'm working on that I want to propose, that we can display for you somehow so you have some confidence that, you know, I sent this box of files that I had retrieved back to the records center. How do I know they made it back to the box? Well, we want to be able to show you that too down the road. So I've got lots of ideas from that aspect. Yes?
John, what about searching the text field?
Series description?
No, there's a field that allows you to just put text in it, like a commentary field, but it was not.
Oh, the comments field,
Yeah,
right.
it was
Don't know.
searchable before. Are there any enhancements there to search that?
I'd have to look at it. I don't even remember if comments is an available field when you go to hit the query button.
Okay.
So I'll have to look at that. Pen.
You see where I'm going? If the user puts in a text file with all the names of something, then there may be research on that.
Okay.
Hi, John, again. Sherilyn Connolly. I got a question for you over here.
Where are you? There you are. Hey.
Question is about the training. You had mentioned that Department of Labor, they did theirs online. What was the minimum? Because I know it's like about 16 of them.
16 videos totaling about 2.5 hours. So it depends on, and Sherilyn, I can send you a list that Rachel created where it displays the 16 individual videos. And what you could do is tell your user, you need to watch, you're a brand new user.
Yes.
I'm only giving you reference requests.
Yes.
So have them watch Module 1, Module 2, and then I think Modules, 7, 8, 9, and 10 that specifically say, and you'll see it on my playlist, you'll see where it specifically says reference requests. Watch all the reference request videos, sign off that you watch the videos, and now I'll give you your user ID and password.
I think they'll appreciate it because we've been giving them the manual.
Yeah,
So
well,
I think
infinitely better, yes. Infinitely better.
Hey, John, Darius Taylor, Department of Health
Darius.
and Human Services. For those, you mentioned deployment, and for the agencies that are spread across different geographical locations, is this a software that can be deployed, I guess just deploy out from your location, or will you need to deploy it across every IT platform? Because we operate on different platforms in
It's
HHS.
all accessible via the internet. So wherever you have an internet connection, you can access ARCIS.
Okay,
So we
thanks.
just give you the URL for it, and you put your user ID and password in from anywhere across the globe. As I used to joke in training, I know that it would all make you feel very comfortable about the ARCIS customer portal that, on Friday night you get home from work and you think, oh, I forgot to place that reference request. Well, you can be assured that at 11 o'clock on Saturday or Friday night, you can log into the ARCIS customer portal and place a reference request.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Anything online? All right, this was good fun. For those of you who haven't deployed, please get in touch with me and we'll start walking you through the process. Thank you very much for your time today. I enjoyed it very much.
All right. Thank you, John. And I'd like to actually go ahead and again thank all of our presenters today. I'd like to thank Preston Huff again for helping me answer questions on the OPM job series. Again, thanks to Kathy Westfeld and Lynn Stewart on their ERA user account updates and the annual move. And of course, thanks again to John for his excellent presentation. And thanks to all of you for coming and asking such great questions today. We got lots of great questions, and I think what makes BRIDG work really well is when we get these great questions, so we really appreciate it. A couple of closing notes two notes from the training team. They wanted me to mention that they have added an electronic records management course to their schedule. It is going to be June 25th to 26th right here at Archives 1. Second, the focus groups for the meet and greet today are open to any records officer that can attend today. This is going to be the last focus group, and we would love to get your input as they start working on curriculum changes to the training program. So please attend that today, and also the meet and greets for appraisal teams 2 and 4. And all those meetings will be taking place in the Jefferson room right here at Archives 1. So we encourage you to come back at 1 o'clock and participate. And everyone else, have a great afternoon, and thank you for coming. That concludes our meeting.